I'm sure you're aware, but my name is Annalise Ortiz. I'm a sophomore here, I think it said in my speaker video, and I am your coordinator for Lobo Awakening 1. So I just want to start off by saying that I'm really glad that you all could make it. There was a lot of love and time put into this retreat, and we've had a lot of help from all over the country for you guys. And so I really hope that you guys can feel it and you're able to take something away from this and let you grow in your own faith. So anyways, my talk is about the Holy Spirit, in case you can't tell. So the Holy Spirit is a really hard idea to try and grapple with. As a kid, I remember always being super confused about the true nature of the Holy Spirit, or really just kind of what it meant. And I think this experience is like super common with a lot of people. Like as a kid, I would always go up and ask adults, well, what actually is the Holy Spirit? And they would just be like, well, it's the Holy Spirit. Like, obviously, you know, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. And they'd be like, and I would be like, oh, okay. And so then whenever someone would ask me, I'd be like, yes, the Holy Spirit. You know, Father, Son, Holy Spirit. And then they'd ask me, I'd be like, well, obviously, duh, it's the Holy Spirit. And then the cycle would continue, and nobody ever really knows what the Holy Spirit is, and we're all just saying these words and pretending like we know what they mean. Yeah? I'm going to pretend you guys are nodding. It makes me feel better. And so that being said, as soon as I got the opportunity to pick my talk, I was like, I'm going to talk about the Holy Spirit. Why? Because I'm a moron. But it happened, Audra let it happen, and here I am. So as any good biology major, I'm going to start by attempting to define my terms. So as we mentioned before, the Holy Spirit is like kind of a hard term to define. So I turned to research, but instead of turning to Google, I first looked at the Nicene Creed, and specifically the end part, the part that talks about the Holy Spirit. But at first glance, it seems like even the Nicene Creed isn't really too sure what to make about the Holy Spirit. You know, like I can just picture everyone at the Council of Nicaea sitting around and being like, all right guys, we did a great job. We got God, we got some Jesus, let's move on to the Holy Spirit. And I was like, yeah, all pumped up. And then it's kind of like that scene from Monty Python, you know, with the duck. When they're like, yeah, okay. And then everyone's like, okay, so what is the Holy Spirit? And they all just like look at each other, you know, and it's like dead silent. And then finally someone goes, a dove! And we're like, yeah, Steve. We're like, yeah, Steve, we know it's a dove. Like, what else? And so everyone's like looking at each other and like scratching their heads. And then someone goes, well, the Holy Spirit's part of the Trinity. And someone's like, and they're like, so technically, the Holy Spirit is also like the Lord? And someone's like, yeah, no, that's great, let's jot that down. What else? And then Steve goes, fire! I was like, Steve, stop talking. And so like, this cycle goes on for like 3 hours, and they finally have something, and they're like, you know what, we're just gonna write about the church, we're gonna scribble it down, and we're gonna sum it all up, and then we're done. You know, and that's how we got the Nicene Creed. That's exactly what happened, and anyone who tells you otherwise is lying to you. Totally. But when you actually look at the Bible, you notice that Steve was actually like kind of right. The only places that the Holy Spirit is mentioned outside, like completely independent of anybody else, is Jesus' baptism and Pentecost. And so like with Jesus' baptism, obviously the dove, I'm wearing it on my shirt, and it's super important because like all of the Trinity was represented like at the same place at the same time, super powerful. But like Pentecost, you know, it's the flames coming down, but not actually burning everybody, and then everybody that it hovered over was like, I can speak in tongues. And everyone was like, all right. And then like, you know, it was important. It spread the faith throughout the world, so I guess that's kind of a thing. But that's all. Like that's it in the Bible. Everywhere else, the Bible is described, or the Holy Spirit is described as working through other people. It was either she was filled with the Holy Spirit or the Holy Spirit spoke through him. And that's pretty much all you ever hear about the Holy Spirit besides the prayer that Audra just did over me, you know, like that, come, Holy Spirit, come, Holy Spirit. That's it. Everywhere else, it's just kind of thrown in. But really, if you like sit down and look at it, this is kind of the job of the Holy Spirit. So looking back at the Nicene Creed, the Holy Spirit proceeds from the Father and the Son and comes down to earth to work through everyday people in our everyday lives. And so this really is kind of the definition that I settled on for the Holy Spirit. It's how we experience God in our everyday lives through everyday people doing everyday actions on everyday things. And so that's my thesis. Just pointed that out. So knowing this makes it a little easier to understand not only how the world works around us, but a bit of how God works through the world. And so a lot of times I think people have a really hard time with how quiet God can seem. And this may be because he's not necessarily sending you like giant signs that are going to scream his name. He's not sending like huge floods or literally moving mountains. He's sending the Holy Spirit to poke and prod you towards that tiny little path that cuts through the mountains. And so one of the hardest things about navigating this reality is learning how to recognize the Holy Spirit when it is present. And so like, yeah, it's one thing to know like logically that the Holy Spirit is working through others. Like I tell you guys, the Holy Spirit is present and like everyone tells you that. But it's a lot harder to actually pinpoint it in our everyday lives and to feel confident that you know it's there. And so one of the solutions to this actually really goes along with what a lot of other people will tell you how to live your lives. And that's looking for the Holy Spirit everywhere, in everything. And it's not easy. You have to completely rearrange your way of thinking. You have to put on your God glasses. And so you start with the small things. You're running late, and there happens to be an open parking spot, like right there. It just happened to me an hour ago when I was bringing James back from the airport. But you take a minute, you thank the Holy Spirit. You pass a dog on your way to class. That makes everyone happy. You thank the Holy Spirit. You notice that the mountains, like, wow, they look really pretty today. Because honestly, guys, we have pretty mountains. But you notice that, and you thank the Holy Spirit. And so once you start learning to recognize the grace of the Holy Spirit in the little things, it becomes a lot easier to recognize it in the bigger things. It becomes habitual. It's a pattern. You start to see it in the random texts that you got that you didn't know you needed till the moment you got it. You see it in the understanding that you and your friends have with each other that allow you to keep up your friendship while on different continents. It's in that small smile that spurred your friendship with that one person that you now take half of your classes with. And maybe, just maybe, it was in that really annoying person who pressured you into signing up for Awakening by sitting at the back of the Newman Center and pointing at my computer every single time after Mass until you signed up. And maybe, now you're like, wow, it's not that bad. But the beauty of all of this is that even if you don't recognize it, the Holy Spirit still works in your life. It's what Kevin was saying. Just because you don't notice it doesn't mean that it's not there. Your friendships don't stop. The mountains don't suddenly lose their grandeur. Dogs don't just disappear from your life. It's just that now you can recognize where all of this beauty comes from. Okay. So on the other hand, the Holy Spirit might also find a way to work through you. And so as is the case with recognizing it in others, you always have to be working to ensure that you will be ready for the Holy Spirit if it picks you to be that one random person that it needs at that time. And so a lot of times, we'll never even know that the Holy Spirit has worked through us, like ever. It may just be some small random act for you that might have had huge repercussions in someone else's life that you'll never hear about. But the amazing part is, it doesn't matter if you hear about it, as long as you're open. All right, enough catechesis. I know some of you are probably thinking like, oh, Lisa, this is great, like, it's super poetic, you're doing the 3 thing real nicely, I'm listing things in 3s, thank you for noticing. But like, practically, what does this mean? How can I look for something if I can't recognize it until after the fact? How can I be open to something if I won't recognize it when it does work through me, and if I don't understand the nature of it at all? Well, welcome to the personal testimony half of my talk. You now get to sit here and listen to me talk about me. Congratulations. Thank you for laughing at that side. So as for a lot of students, the transition to college is really hard. So if any of you else here are out-of-state students, you know that it's especially hard to try and start completely new when everyone else seems to have years of friendships. Even if you don't really like that person, you still know them, and you can build off of that. I didn't have that. I was walking around, my roommate would go have lunch with her friends from high school, and she would ask me to tag along, and it felt like a pity invite, but you know what, I went with it. Holy Spirit. And so while I was ready for this, one thing that really took me by surprise was how hard the transition to the Newman Center was. Not only did I not know anyone, I was trying to figure out the flow of the Mass, which was completely different from the flow of the Mass back home. And in the big sense, the overall structure was the same. You know, like we sing a song, we read the book, we have a talk, we have Jesus, and then we go home. That's a mess, you're welcome.
That's it. We don't need the mass tomorrow.
But there were a lot of differences that I wasn't ready for. And so the first one was having to learn the act of contrition. We didn't say the act of contrition back home. We did the whole Lord have mercy, Christ have mercy, Lord have mercy sequence, and that was it. So I'm sitting here in Mass ready for that, and then all of a sudden everyone stands up and starts saying this other fancy prayer that I don't know because I learned it in 3rd grade in a catechesis and we never went back to it. And I knew that like looking at that card that has the prayer on the back is cheating. And I'm not a cheater. So I didn't do that. So I stood there like super awkwardly and was like, I confess. And like that's what I did. And then afterwards I'd like look around like super inconspicuously. And I'd look around and be like, did anyone notice I'm failing? I don't know if someone did. If you did, please don't tell me. And then another difference is learning when to kneel. So back home, our church was too small initially to buy kneelers, like it was too big of an investment. So we got special permission from the diocese to stand, and we just haven't gotten kneelers. So I didn't know that there are 2 separate times in masses when you kneel. Like, I didn't know that. So I get down and I'm kneeling, and then all of a sudden we have to stand up and then get back down. Like, I know that leaning back against the chair is also cheating, yes. And as we've established, I'm not a cheater. So I sat there the entire time, and I would walk out going like this, because it hurts, for a whole month until my body was like, wow, we should grow some cartilage there.